Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's midday Northeast U.S. regional forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, while much of the country's attention was on the massive severe weather outbreak we had in Texas, Oklahoma, and then the heavy rains that moved through those states and up into Kansas and Missouri, you can see in this satellite animation, this infrared satellite animation, some of the stronger storms that did move through parts of the Northeast out ahead of this large system. By the way, one other thing to point out here as you're kind of watching this animation is we actually have our first named tropical system of the year. Down here, its name is Andrea. Andrea is right now moving away from the U.S. coastline, will not be a major influence, but it is something to talk about because we right now do have very warm ocean water across much of the East Coast United States, the Gulf Coast, and then some of those warmer waters are kind of creeping up toward the Northeast with time. But it's a really dynamic time of year in terms of the interplay between the Gulf Stream, which kind of flows like this, and where the warmer waters are. But something we have to start keeping an eye on now as we progress toward the month of June, which is the beginning of our tropical season. Okay, but not to talk too much about tropics, let's talk about what's going on in terms of weather hazards. Certainly the middle of the country is dealing with a lot of flooding issues right now as this storm system progresses east. But what we're going to be seeing here in the next few moments is that the Northeast is going to be influenced by the dominance of a large ridge over the Southeast. And it's going to take systems that are going to pull to the north like this and then move in this direction before we get chances, and we will have multiple chances of showers and thunderstorms through the next 10 days in the Northeast. But the southeastern ridge is going to be a major player. Now, when you saw the flood watches I just showed you a few moments ago, this is where the flooding is currently really going on in the midsection of the country. We're going to continue to see these problems in the foreseeable future. And that's because when you look over the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation, you can certainly see the striations here in the Northeast moving through parts of Pennsylvania, New York, and then of course up in Vermont and Maine, where we have seen some heavier rainfall and certainly some severe weather. But look down here. This is where most of the moisture is being focused right now and where the main flooding threat has been. Let me rewind the clock a couple of days. We had 219 reports of severe weather, and this was again back on the 19th. And we can see that parts of Pennsylvania really took a beating, as did parts of New York here, with a lot of strong winds, big squall that blew through there with some embedded hail in this. So what I'm trying to tell you is the precipitation that's coming over the next 10 days, we are going to have multiple chances for having some strong to severe storms move through the area, but it'll be the interplay with the ridge over the southeast that makes the northeast forecast quite challenging in the coming days. We do know this, though. Over the last 30 days, for the most part, the northeast has been very, very wet compared to average. We're sitting anywhere between 110 and 190% of normal on rainfall, just looking over the last month. To the south, though, look at how dry things have been. And again, that is the influence of that southeastern ridge, something I talk about quite a bit. So to show you soil moisture anomalies, when we look here, soil moisture percent, not anomaly, but percent, we can see here that much of the Northeast is sitting well above the 70% range when you look at the first 3 feet of soil. And that's kind of the case across much of the U.S. growing regions when we think about how wet things have been this year. Our drought monitor shows us we have very, very little drought. There's basically only some drought creeping into this area here, some in parts of Four Corner states down here, and then part of Washington, believe it or not, is still dealing with some drought issues. But our soil moisture profile right now is quite saturated, and that's what's kept a lot of us from getting a lot of early spring work done. That and some cool temperatures at times. You can see that part of the Northeast we're actually still behind average on the accumulation of growing degree day units so far this year. But there is some change coming, and the heat that has been over the Southeast, well, we're going to see the influence of a pretty strong ridge there that could change things in the Northeast in the coming days. And what I'm talking about is right here. You can see that the flow of the jet stream is highly amplified and very fast over the Pacific, and it makes a hard turn in the central part of the country before it kind of pulls into a small trough that's just sitting here over the Northeast. Well, the structure of the jet stream in the middle part of the country is going to send systems north before they progress over to the east. And that's an important thing to understand because that southeastern ridge is a roadblock right now in the way of everything. Also, you can see the circulation down here of subtropical storm Andrea. Again, wind speeds sustained around 40 miles an hour, and it is headed out to ocean. So this is not a major threat. It's just a part of the subtropical high, underneath the subtropical high, I should say, there in the southeast. So that particular flow pattern is one that's going to be quite interesting for us because today we have some decent offshore flow. So the wind's certainly coming from the northwest, kind of zipping across the northeastern United States. But we're going to watch this system and its transition north and then how it's going to move east by the time we get into Thursday. Okay, just stretching this out over the next 5 days. So here's your 5-day temperature anomaly forecast that's over here on the left. We can see the overall flow pattern is favoring a feature like this. And what we're going to be therefore seeing is to our south really warm temperatures, but warming trend here for the northeast with time. You can see that by the time we get to day 6 through 10, boy, the jet stream is really kind of telling us what it's going to be doing here. So we're going to be building into a time period of above average temperatures once we get past the next couple of days here. Stretching this out in terms of precipitation, like I told you, it's that southeastern ridge that's going to make things difficult. On the left, I have the 15-day GFS ensemble, and on the right, I have the European model and its ensemble. We can kind of see that the country is split right in through here as to where it's going to be wet and where it's going to be dry, and both models are in great agreement about that. So overall, because I am at least seeing 3 chances of precipitation in the next 10 days for the northeast, we do pick up on a slight wetter bias, but just creep south, get into the mid-Atlantic states, and there we're under the influence of the ridge and some pretty serious heat. And when I say serious, I'm talking down here along the southeast. We may see temperatures multiple days in a row getting up in the upper 90s. So it's very, very warm to our south. What about severe weather? Well, today the focus is still on the midsection of the country, but that surface low pressure system is eventually meandering up here into the Great Lakes states. It's going to drag a boundary right here initially. So parts of Pennsylvania and Ohio and West Virginia, this again is on the day on Wednesday. We're going to be watching for some stronger storms, but look at what happens by the time we get into the day on Thursday. This system finally progresses here to the east, and it will be dragging a front through here that kind of stalls out in this area and then comes back all the way over to the parts of the Central Plains. And the Storm Prediction Center already has issued a large area where they're watching for a slight risk. Now, that's significant. That's at least a 15% chance of having severe weather within 25 miles of any given point inside that kind of yellowish, greenish hashed area right in through here. So we're going to keep a close eye on Thursday. That's kind of the first big wave of precip for us. Now, let's kind of take a look at it. Certainly today, the influence of this high pressure system has got us windy and a little chilly to start things off, but watch it how things progress with the system in the middle part of the country. So here's our operational European model. High pressure across much of the northeast keeps us a little cool but dry, and that is until we get into Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Now you can see the low pressure system is sitting here over the kind of Lake Superior. What we're going to watch is throughout the day on Thursday, this is Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, and Thursday evening, that low goes from here, and as it does so, the main frontal boundary will be sitting right in through this area. Now, because of the presence of this high pressure system, we will be bringing right up here along the eastern slopes of the Appalachian Mountains plenty of warm, moist, and unstable air. So with the heating we get out of this, with the destabilization of the atmosphere, and then the front that's going to come right in through this area, we are going to be on the lookout for some stronger storms. Really, it looks like Thursday afternoon, but evening time period. So that is kind of wave number 1. Let's get those drawings off there and see what's coming next. So that goes through. In the meanwhile, so that's your soggy day on Thursday into Thursday night. Meanwhile, on Friday morning, the next system emerges in the central United States. It then goes on the same trajectory. Look, so I've got you out here to Friday night. What happens? Well, that same system skirts there through southern Canada, such that by Friday night, the low pressure center is now sitting here. The main frontal boundary is stretched into this area, and that's again our second wave coming in on Saturday night of possibly having some showers, thunderstorms, and some locally heavy rainfall amount. Well, that moves out. And guess what happens? The system kind of does the same thing again, and we see this all the way out to around May 30th. So really, we have good details on the first 2 waves that are coming through again on Thursday and again on Saturday. Beyond that, though, the pattern does not really shut down. So what do we see looking over the next 10 days? Well, much of the northeast here has the pretty good chance of picking up between 1 and 3 inches of rainfall, locally some heavier amounts. The farther south you go, the hotter it will be, and you'll be under more of the influence of this dominant southeast ridge, which means only hit or miss showers and thunderstorms as we progress through the southern part of Pennsylvania, getting into Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, that region. So you can really see the influence of this pattern taking systems like this and then over, rather than taking them straight from Texas right to the northeast, which is what we saw a lot during the winter. So a little bit of a pattern change moving forward. Talking about temperatures, I told you, we're going to start off in the day on Tuesday cool. So you can see widespread 60s here. Look at how hot it's going to be across the southeast, though. I'll go ahead and click play on this. It's going to play fast, but I'll pause it and bring it back here for you. You do notice that after we have the cool start to the week, temperatures do rebound by the time we get into Thursday. So see, Thursday we're back up into the 70s. They're a little bit farther to the south 80s. We kind of hang on to that temperature pattern through the weekend with multiple chances of having some stronger storms again Thursday and once again on Saturday. But look, we see 90s creeping pretty far up the coast here with that southeastern ridge. So that's something that's important to keep on lookout for. What's the pattern doing? I'm just going to play this out for you. There's your dominant ridge. But by the time we get to the end of the month, let's pause it right there. There's a bit of a pattern change coming. You did see the flow doing this, okay? Big ridge over the southeast with deep trough swinging through here. But notice what happens by the time we get all the way out to the end of the month. We start to see the establishment of a pretty sizable trough between the Great Lakes and the Hudson Bay. Now, what will this do? This certainly does keep things active for the northeast, but it kind of diminishes the influence of the southeastern ridge and squeezes it back towards Texas. At the same time that that's happening, that trough does want to move such that we see that when we get into the first week of June, we're trying to build a pattern that's quite a bit different than what we've been seeing. Ridges here and a ridge building here, kind of in parts of the North Atlantic. But this pattern is relatively washed out. And what I'm concerned about seeing is you can see there's overall a dip in the flow right in through here. And if that's the case, this could keep much of the Northeast away from the extreme heat once we get into June, but also may keep us quite active in terms of precipitation. So as a way to finish this out, let me just take you out to the middle of June. And what I'm seeing again here is what we just talked about. You can see the flow patterns doing something like this. Okay? And when I see that pattern, what this doesn't show me is a large ridge in control of the eastern part of the United States. We don't see that. Instead, we see more of this kind of ridge feature down here in Texas, which may get over toward the southeast, but really the Pacific Ocean might be dominating our flow pattern. So with the setup of that, dry down here, but kind of a ring of wetter pattern, weather that could be moving around the northern periphery of this, which may make the Northeast maybe carry a bit of a wet bias. We certainly can see the mid-Atlantic states wetter than average. And I told you, it doesn't look as though we're going to be seeing, way above average temperatures as we progress into the month of June, even though we have some warmth coming in the next 10 days. But you can see the cooler pattern stretching around that feature there over Texas. So it's a complicated pattern as we move into early summer. Just as a reminder, we're 1 month away from the summer solstice. So we're moving quickly here through spring and into summer. But with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions hope you look forward to our next Northeast Regional Forecast video. We'll have video content coming out each day this week at my.nutrienagsolutions.com. Have a great week. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.